Tonally, it's a real roller coaster. Being witty, bloody, sexy, visceral, brutal, humorous. It's kind of, you can never quite pin down where it's going next.
It comes from
Batman, Star Wars, you could write essays
Indiana
on it.
Jones.
Indiana Jones. There's the mythology maps very neatly onto a lot of those.
And I think the reason why this show will be so appealing is because it's so unique.
It's his unique vision reconceiving young Leonardo da Vinci as a kind of Renaissance superhero. So I think it's fair to say it's not your traditional costume drama.
And I play Leonardo at a time in his life that we know very little about, really, comparatively. There was a huge period, which was a great blank canvas for David, where, although we know what was going on historically, we don't necessarily know what his connection to that history is.
Lucretia Donati, she's married to the head textile in Florence. She was the mistress of Lorenzo de Medici. She's someone that you cannot put a finger on. You don't know who she is. You don't know why she's doing the things that she's doing, but she absolutely is doing them for a just reason. And a great reason, and it's the thing that I held on to throughout the whole series. She's very different with all the different people that you see her with, because she has to be. She has to be a certain person with Lorenzo, she has to be a certain person with her husband, and then she meets Da Vinci, and he's this intriguing, sort of exciting bohemian artist, and part of her lets her guard down, and she shouldn't.
When she meets me, I blindside her, and likewise the other way around, because Leonardo, he recognises he can see through everything, everything's clear. He's 7 chess moves ahead of everyone else. When it comes to Lucretia, he can't quite work out what the deal with her is. There's part of her that's shadowed to him.
My name is Riario in the show, and I'm a ruthless bastard, literally. I'm the illegitimate son of Pope Sixtus IV. And in the kind of the political landscape of the show, it's very much Rome and the Pope versus Florence and the Medicis. And I represent Rome, and I'm the primary Medici.
I play Clarice Orsini, who is driven by the love of her husband, her family name, and the love of Florence, of her city. Devoted wife, astute politician.
Good dress sense. She wears a lot of canary yellow.
I do.
I hesitate to say villain, because I think in his head, at least, he considers himself to be the hero. He's driven by this pure belief in the divine. He considers himself this soldier, this crusader of God who must save souls and save Florence and save the world. I think that's what makes him terrifying, is he's almost like a religiously motivated terrorist.
Yeah, with Leonardo, I did a lot of I read a lot of biographies that existed, speculation about him, all the ones that were written at the time by people, or the one really that was written at the time by someone who knew him. And that was perhaps the most interesting, because that painted him with this, like in this kind of superhuman way of having this incredible mind, being an incredible sword fighter and adventurer, and being able to bend a steel bar with his bare hands.
I mean, some of the inventions he came up with, from solar power to helicopters to parachutes to tanks to submarines, diving suits. I mean, it's extraordinary. And I didn't know about missing pages. When he died, there were 13,000 pages of his sketches. Within a year, 6,000 were missing. And that's part of the premise of the show, is what was in those 6,000 pages. Why did they go missing? Were they stolen? Were they appropriated? It's kind of extraordinary how much of it is true. But having said that, there's nothing slavish about it. You know, this is a wonderful amalgam of fantasy and history.
I liked all the little things, like he was ambidextrous and he was a vegetarian. And
yeah, I didn't know he was a vegetarian. A very, very rare thing to do. And there was a guy who owned the studio that we shot in, this gigantic space that we turned into the biggest mainland studio in Europe, down in Wales. But he was very proud to tell me that he was the only vegetarian in Swansea, and that's why this show meant a great deal to him, because he had discovered from reading the scripts that Da Vinci was also a vegetarian. When he's struggling to be recognised, he's struggling to let his genius be seen, compounded by the fact that he's in a society that won't let him be free, won't let him show himself because he's illegitimate, he's a bastard, he can't join the Guild of Artists, huge chip on his shoulder about it, the arrogance that comes with the knowledge that you're cleverer than everyone else, but the frustration that comes with the fact you can't do anything about it. Anything that can be imagined will one day be built. It's just driven by this idea that no, you are just all being small-minded.
What's so wonderful that I've learned to love about Clarice is that she's a woman of few words. The devoted politician's wife. She's a Jackie O, she's a Hillary Clinton, she's a Wallis Simpson, and she's introduced much later into season 1, and ends up becoming a principal role in the survival and the fight against Rome.
You never know which character is going to step forward and take the reins, which character is going to suddenly get killed off that you think is a regular. I remember reading the script for the first time, and it's genuinely unusual to read a script. And having read a lot of scripts, you generally know where it's heading, and you have no clue with this. It constantly keeps you guessing. It constantly keeps pulling the rug under your feet, and there are a lot of surprises to come with all the characters, I think. I mean, David Goyer, this is part of his genius, is he creates these very deep, resonant, complex characters. Nothing is simple. He tiptoes around all the tropes of characterization. He has this encyclopedic knowledge of every character, not only for this series and their arcs, but where it would go if we're lucky enough to get to series 7. I think that's what gives all the characters such a kind of gravity.
And the second you kind of feel slightly secure with who they are and what their motives are, he throws you a curveball.
Yeah, constant curveballs. He's the master of the googly.
And so it has these beautiful, heartwarming moments of almost childlike visual artistry on the screen, and yet you're straight away thrown into something quite dark and political and corrupt.
They actually scoured the world. They went to every principal city, and they came back to Swansea.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
But actually, when we broke it down and we realised what Swansea and Wales had to offer, it was amazing because they've got, did you say over 400 castles?
400 castles.
All at different states of ruin.
The architectural resources, there are Victorian follies, disused mines, castles, moats.
The landscapes are lush and beautiful, and
valleys and
quarries and yeah, so it's stunning.
And we've all invested very heavily in waterproof clothing.
The weather was a challenge
Yeah.
at the time.
Swansea has its own like little microclimate as well, doesn't it? It can be amazing. Like you can speak to someone like one of the makeup artists who have just driven in from Cardiff, and she'll be saying it's glorious in Cardiff, and they'll be like, well,
that's 5 minutes away.
Yeah, how is it winter here?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the ultimate polymath. He was anatomist, scientist, artist, musician, war engineer. I mean, it's kind of...
So therefore, the second you think you know who Leonardo da Vinci is, I think what David's vision is that we challenge you to think again.
I don't think he knows who he is himself, which is part of the joy. He's struggling to come to terms with who he is.
Hence Da Vinci's Demons.